Okay, that was perfect. We are live right now. Hello, everybody. By the way, and
Oh,
just
timing was good. I was like, "Ooh, that looked fun. I should do that for real."
you
And then I
did it
wrote
for real on the first one. On go, you nailed it. Just boom, we flip over and just whoop right in. Like couldn't have planned it better.
I'm too good. It can't be helped, man.
I know.
I just this little light of mine.
It is
I'm gonna let
unavoidable
it riz.
perfection. So for those of you, by the way, who are streaming in, hi, welcome to Back to Basics. This is our every other week. I guess we've taken to calling it a Bible study podcast, but it's more like a team ranting about the Bible and its associated elements.
Shall I give any new viewers a rundown of how this got started, right quick? If I can do it quickly.
You want to do it?
Yeah, sure.
Go ahead.
Because I talk, you talk more than I do.
Yeah.
Which is a
Occupational hazard.
challenge. Speaking more than the ADD friend. Yee. Yeah, so basically I was when Don was first getting this church started and approached me to help out with it, I was like, okay. I said, but I'm going to need something from you. He's like, what? And I'm like, I'm going to need you to reteach me Christianity from square one because I'm real done with what I'm seeing around me. I'm like, there's nothing here that's worth it anymore. I can still abide by my morals and stuff without being part of this religion. I'm super done. So if I'm really, I'm giving it my all. I'm putting everything I can manage into, a progressive church, and one of my best friends is trying to save Christianity. If this fails, I can really say I did everything I could. So anyway, yeah, he's like, you want to start from square one? What's that look like? And I'm like, I don't know. Let's just read the Bible. He's like, the whole Bible. I'm like, yeah. You just want to start with Genesis 1? I'm like, yeah, why the hell not? And he's like, all right. And then I think Don was the one who got the idea to film it. Because, hey, people, I'm like, you really think people will want to see this? He's like, yeah. And, 12 or so YouTube subscribers later, here we are.
Well, truth be told, you are not the only one struggling with these things, and I really did figure that some people might get some real benefit out of this. And so far, the literally fives of people who have gotten benefit out of it so far really have. But
dozens and dozens of unfinished maniacs.
So, hi, Unfinished Maniacs. Nice to see you.
Yeah, so we're studying what? Exodus now?
We are, right? We are now on our 81st episode after several years of doing this, and we have made it all the way to the 8th chapter of Exodus. So now you understand why, of course.
You sent me the 9th.
What? Oh, sorry, 9th.
You sent me the 9th.
Yeah, it is. Sure. It's 9th, correct.
Excellent.
We are on Exodus now. We're on the 9th chapter of Exodus. My bad. And of course, now you are beginning to understand why I was like, really, from Genesis, from the beginning, you want to start from jump. This thing is a lot longer than people remember.
No, I know the Bible is really, really freaking long. But, if I'm going to dedicate myself to a religion, I would like to know it kind of inside and out.
And there's a lot of this stuff that people just skip over.
I'm done with, religion for funsies. No. I don't have time for that.
Without getting into a rant about modern religion, which you all know I could do at the drop of a hat.
Don't let him do it.
This is something that even modern Christianity, even the good parts of modern Christianity, really, really drops the ball on. Is wanting to kind of turn it into religion for funsies. And as much of a slog as it can be to do this from start to finish, there's a reason why we're doing it, because, what have we found? Something like 50-60% of this is stuff that just doesn't come up in church?
A pretty amazing amount of it, really, yeah.
And, some of this is important stuff,
Well, and some of the stuff that came up in church, I effectively learned, all the wrong way, which is saying something, because I went to, a pretty legitimate... I grew up Episcopal. I grew up and was confirmed Episcopal, and I still... that we have no choice but to stand. My local brick and mortar is Episcopal. That fantastic woman in D.C. is Episcopal. Yeah, no, go Episcopals.
No, a lot of good to say about the Episcopals. No argument there.
But also, there was a ton of stuff I didn't quite pick up on, and when as a young adult and teen, I started going to a Lutheran church. And again, I understand lots of good Lutherans out there and such. Yeah.
Yeah, ELCA and Missouri Synod, not the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, so
So that all.
yeah, it is really shocking the sheer number of things that we find in here that really do need overall discussion, and we'll never run out of content.
Yeah.
And it's though I did at one point say, please, for the love of God, can we do some New Testament? So please join us when we do Mark.
Yeah,
which we are working through.
Which is the thing we're doing, and I don't want to promise it, and I don't want to get into the, shall we say, D&D metagaming of trying to set schedule. But there has been discussion about trying to squeeze in a Good Friday revisit to the gospel narrative this week, because, hey, fun fact, even though we're doing our usual shtick, we are actually in the middle of Holy Week too. So we got, my God, we got a lot of shit going on. We had our big panel discussion yesterday. We had a lot of big ideas that aren't panning out to the real world things. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead. No, we had our big panel discussion yesterday, which, missed you on that one. Really wish you could have made. Oh well, it's fine. But we had. I don't even
talking over everyone in the congregation, man.
Well, no, it was good, and it was a fun kind of thing, because due to and I'm gonna say quote unquote reasons, we wound up having to cancel our Palm Sunday service. And I'm not gonna get into great specifics about why.
Yeah, no, I know. That's fine. I know.
Those of us who are in the community have a pretty good idea why, but I'm not going to put that out on blast.
But we can just say real world stuff. It tends to take Earth meet space stuff happens sometimes, and let's just draw a curtain over the scene.
There was justice work need doing in the local, so that's as far as I'll go with that. Anyway,
yeah, it was important.
As a result, what we wound up doing is we wound up taking that panel conversation we kind of always planned on doing, the What is Holy Week, and we literally just chocolate peanut buttered it together with what Pastor Akiko had planned for the worship service on Palm Sunday, and wound up with a combination worship service panel discussion that was, no joke, quite a lot of fun. Came out pretty good, and afterwards we wound up running a lot of the music stuff that'll be popping up on our joint Easter service. Tune in for that bad boy. That's going to be a hoot.
A hoot?
It will be.
I don't know that I've ever heard an Easter service described as a hoot before, but cool.
Yeah, perhaps even hootenanny if the music turns out the way I think it might, but you never know.
Did you find someone who plays banjo?
No, but I did find someone who plays the Chinese hand drum in a way that is somewhat reminiscent of banjo. So, all the same, it is very, very cool. Lots of cool stuff. We will have our Easter choir kicking off, which is going to be a riot. Especially because you have me both directing and accompanying at the same time, which is, spoiler alert, something I should never be allowed to do. But in fact am. So
work is what that is.
Yeah.
You are setting yourself up for insanity, dude.
You've basically described the theme of this church.
Yeah, I mean that's not wrong. I like this church. I'm happy to be able to fit. I don't mean to rag on it. It's just, man, we get into some weird business, don't we?
And that's, without delaying us too much farther from our Bible verse of the day, that's what a church should be. A church should be into the weird. We should be the ones who are talking about the weird old shit. We're the ones who should be doing the strange and the odd and the unexpected and the stuff of life. And by the way, to answer the question popping off in the chat, a shamisen is essentially a Japanese banjo. That's correct. I very much want to learn how to play one, and if I can ever find one at the thrift store, I am probably going to get in a great deal of trouble with Pastor Akiko because I will spend more money on it than I ought to.
You're as bad as Steve.
Yeah. There's a reason why he and I have been friends for so many decades, and the same goes for you as well. Anyway, should we talk about the Bible at some point?
I mean, I guess that's probably what people came to see. I don't know.
I suppose. I think people
we can talk about the Bible.
May appreciate a little bit of that Holly Bibble.
Yeah.
So we got
Holly Bibble?
The Holly
Bibble.
Holly Bibble.
What's wrong with you two? Not lots. I know. I've been your friend for a long time.
Okay. Everything. Quite a bit. So
we're good.
Yeah.
It is known.
We are on the 9th chapter of Exodus. We've got the NurseVu in front of us, the NRSVUE.
NurseVu.
I'm being ridiculous. Nobody calls it that. I'm not trying to make NurseVu happen.
It's not going to happen. Stop trying to make Nurse Boo happen.
Yep. I've got Robert Alter's translation in front of me as well for reference material. You know, I'm going to spoiler alert this a little bit because this is for the Christianity 101 lesson 2 that wound up getting canceled for the same reasons over this past weekend. Where I'll be talking about Bible translations. Robert Alter's translation is an individual translation done by one person. Generally speaking, we don't hold those to the same level of, I'm not going to say reverence, but definitely like, this is our Bible, that we do Bibles that were translated by whole groups because we want there to be accountability in the process.
Yeah.
And something like 90% of the individual translated Bibles tend to be shit on the level of like the Schofield Reference Bible, which fuck all of that. But Alter's good. Like, he knows his stuff. He's academic, he's poetic, and he is a long-standing Hebrew language scholar and is a trustworthy source here. So, while I don't use this as the pulpit Bible, and nor do I recommend an individual translation as a pulpit Bible, like the one that you would preach from for your sermons and whatnot, it's a good reference, and it's something I do recommend. So just so there was...
It's given us a great deal of insight over the course of the show so far.
Yeah, so dude knows a hell of a lot more than I do.
Come on, dude.
All right. You want to take our reading away?
Yeah, of course. No problem. All right. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Go to Pharaoh and say to him, 'Thus says the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, let my people go so that they may serve me.' If you refuse to let them go and still hold them, the hand of the Lord will strike with a deadly pestilence your livestock in the field, the horses, the donkeys, the camels, the herds, and the flocks. But the Lord will make a distinction between the livestock of Israel and the livestock of Egypt, so that nothing shall die of all that belongs to the Israelites." The Lord set a time, saying, "Tomorrow the Lord will do this thing in the land." And on the next day the Lord did so. All of the Egyptians' livestock died, but none of the Israelites' livestock died. Pharaoh inquired and found that not even one of the Israelites' livestock had died. But the heart of Pharaoh was hardened, and he would not let the people go. Then the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "Take handfuls of soot from the kiln, and let Moses throw it in the air in the sight of Pharaoh. It shall become dust all over the land of Egypt, and shall cause festering boils on humans and animals throughout the whole land of Egypt." So they took soot from the kiln and stood before Pharaoh, and Moses threw it in the air, and it caused festering boils on humans and animals. The magicians could not stand before Moses because of the boils, for the boils afflicted the magicians as well as all the Egyptians. But the Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, and he would not listen to him, just as the Lord had spoken to Moses. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Rise up early in the morning, and present yourself before Pharaoh, and say to him, 'Thus says the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, let my people go, so that they may serve me. For this time I will send all my plagues upon you yourself, your officials, and your people, so that you may know there is no one like me in all the earth. Indeed, by now I could have stretched out my hand and struck you and your people with pestilence, and you would have been cut off from the earth. But this is why I have let you live, to show you my power, and to make my name resound through all the earth. You are still exalting yourself against my people by not letting them go. Tomorrow at this time I will cause the heaviest hail to fall that has ever fallen in Egypt from the day it was founded until now. Send therefore and have your livestock and everything that you have in the open field brought to a secure place. Every human or animal that is in the open field and is not brought under shelter will die when the hail comes down upon them." Those officials of Pharaoh who feared the word of the Lord hurried their slaves and livestock off to a secure place. But those who did not regard the word of the Lord left their slaves and livestock in the open field. The Lord said to Moses, "Stretch out your hand toward heaven, so that hail may fall on the whole land of Egypt, on humans and animals, and all the plants of the field in the land of Egypt." Then Moses stretched out his staff toward heaven, and the Lord sent thunder and hail, and fire came down on the earth. And the Lord rained hail on the land of Egypt. There was hail with fire flashing continually in the midst of it. Such heavy hail as had never fallen in all the land of Egypt since it became a nation. The hail struck down everything that was in the open field throughout all the land of Egypt, both human and animal. The hail also struck down all the plants of the field and shattered every tree in the field. Only in the land of Goshen, where the Israelites were, was there no hail. Then Pharaoh summoned Moses and Aaron and said to them, "This time I have sinned. The Lord is in the right, and I and my people are in the wrong. Pray to the Lord. Enough of God's thunder and hail. I will let you go. You need stay no longer." Moses said to him, "As soon as I have gone out of the city, I will stretch out my hands to the Lord. The thunder will cease, and there will be no more hail, so that you may know the earth is the Lord's. But as for you and your officials, I know that you do not yet fear the Lord God." Now the flax and the barley were ruined, for the barley was in the ear, and the flax was in bud. But the wheat and the spelt were not ruined, for they were late in coming up. So Moses left Pharaoh, went out of the city, and stretched out his hands to the Lord. Then the thunder and the hail ceased, and the rain no longer poured down on the earth. But when Pharaoh saw that the rain and the hail and the thunder had ceased, he sinned once more and hardened his heart, he and his officials. So the heart of Pharaoh was hardened, and he would not let the Israelites go, just as the Lord had spoken through Moses. Ta-da!
All right. So, before we kind of get into our point by point thoughts,
I still hate that it says that the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart. I just, that still doesn't sit right with me. I know I brought it up like twice. But repetition is something that's used as a literary device in the Bible, so I'm going to blame it on that.
Right. And you know, we can spend a little bit getting back into the old argument about what is hardening of the heart.
Yeah.
You know, and we talked about this basically being like rich folk who are wrapped up in themselves and their needs and their wants to such a greedy degree that they can't see themselves as anything other than terrible victims who deserve to have everything and are utterly put out when someone so much as even suggests accountability or that they play by the rules. Now,
I get all that, but why not just say his heart was hardened by his greed and sin? Like, why say the Lord hardened his heart? That's the part that always gets me.
Old ways of thinking and expressing for the most part. Like, I'm not saying... Here's where it gets complicated. I'm not necessarily saying the original text presents it that way. The original text is pretty much faithful to what you're seeing in the English here. The original text, the source text, just say the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart. What I am saying is that our understanding of the mechanics of that needs to be adjusted based on what we know about God now versus what was known about God when this was first put down. And so
they quote it, they attribute it as a quote to God repeatedly, though.
Do they?
And they repeat things to make a point.
They repeat.
What does Alter? Does Alter have anything to say about this?
Nothing new that we haven't talked about in earlier passages, which kind of supports what I'm saying here. But
because it feels like the reason it eats me is because it feels like taking the free will away from Pharaoh, like the possibility of it. And if it was never a possibility to begin with, why did God take credit for hardening his heart and make God's self look so unfair?
So I'm going to give you a perspective thing here, and I want you to consider this because what we're really arguing about is the use of the active versus the passive voice. And we've talked about kind of like the relative ignorance of God for the earlier writers and stuff like that, who didn't realize that this was, you know, a bit bigger than God saying, "Ha, you won't change your mind," which is not really how God do. All of that aside, imagine yourself in a situation where you're dealing with a rich white dude. Okay, and say at one point you worked for said rich white dude, and rich white dude has decided, well, I am just not going to pay you your wages. I know you've worked for them. I know the law says I should, but I've decided I'm not going to. I don't want to, and you can't make me. Now...
Yeah, hard to imagine, huh?
Yeah, right? Any action you take to make him pay his wages beyond that point is an action of you towards him that results in him seeing you do this and getting more entrenched, more hardened in his heart. Now... the fact that you are the active agent in hardening his heart doesn't necessarily take away his agency in allowing his heart to be hardened too. Because you always have the option to just walk away and say, well, I guess I'm just not fucking getting paid. But you're taking an active agency here, and in the same way, this is kind of what God's doing, is God is continuing to press him on this matter, and Pharaoh in his heart is thinking, dude, just let this shit go. Like, it's slaves. We all have slaves. It's not a normal thing. And God pushes and pushes and pushes, and Pharaoh's heart is getting harder and harder and harder because God is pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing. Like, the act of pushing is hardening Pharaoh's heart. It's not, I think it's not an overriding of free will. It's a natural part of this.
And it's gone. Shit.
Sorry.
I had a moment of feeling like I understood this, and I knew a good way to sum it up. Shoot. It'll come back around. It was basically just registering what you, like. I feel like this time you've explained it in a way that makes a bit more sense to me. Like, I will harden his heart at that point comes around more to, I'm going to give him a million chances, and he's going to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that this is exactly who he is, and he's not going to change.
Right. I'm going to give him a chance to change. He will be offended by that change, and he will become more of a dick.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what it is. And because God is the active agent here, God is doing the hardening, because God is saying, hey, let my people go, you jackass. And he's saying, how dare you call me a jackass? I am a slaver, thank you very much. And is hardening his heart. And that's pretty much it. Like, it's not an override of free will.
Yeah, but that makes a lot more sense. But it's, again, the phrasing just throws me off every time. But as I keep saying, it's studying the Bible is a lot like, if you're going to study Shakespeare or whatever, you're going to have to accept that there's stuff there that you don't understand and won't understand unless you do some really intensive study.
And for verification's sake, I want to draw attention over to verse 34 as well, which is kind of a thing, and I want to make sure that's up on the screen for those of you who can see it. In the Nurse Vu, but when Pharaoh saw that the rain and the hail and thunder had ceased, he sinned once more and hardened his heart, and he and his officials. Look at that at that expression of it right there, like that one right there. That's putting it exactly how you'd expect.
You see the hardened heart happening. It's more just a matter of like. It's almost like if I were to do like the Naki translation or whatever, maybe like
I would buy that.
I will prove the hardness of his heart.
Yeah, that's
beyond all doubt.
That is honestly a good way to look at it. I would point out with verse 34 as well. I'm going to read Alter's translation. And Pharaoh saw that the rain and the hail and the thunder had stopped, and he continued to offend, and he hardened his heart, both he and his servants. Now, like, this verse fantastically highlights the rich white guy causal relationship with everything that's happening here. Like, the minute the pressure is off, he turns around and says, okay, well, now that's done, I'm going to go right back to fucking my workers over. And how dare you...
Right thing because I thought I had to.
What?
Now I don't feel like I have to. I only said I was going to do the right thing because I thought I had to. Now that I don't have to, why would I bother following through?
Exactly. Like it's rich white guy logic, which in response to being pressured and held accountable for his evil, the response is to get more entrenched in the evil that he's doing until it leads to his own destruction. It's a violent psychological circle that just about every oppressor, economic, royal, institutional, what have you, tends to fall into. If you really put the pressure on, I'll say whatever you want me to say, and then the minute you step out of the room, I'm going to go back to doing what I was doing, because that's what I want to do, and nobody tells me what to do, because I'm a big baby, as all rich folk tend to be.
Because I'm a big baby, I love.
I mean, yeah, the cognitive overlap between rich folk and toddlers is almost a Venn diagram circle.
It is a little funny in an incredibly infuriating, frustrating, society-destroying sort of a way.
Yes. So that's the harden the heart argument. Beyond that, we're just dealing with progressively fancier plagues at this point. Now, there are some,
Yeah.
shall we say, canon inconsistencies here. The type of things that might be called plot holes. Were you able to catch any of them?
Let me look now. Hang on.
Well, I will point out one of them.
Yeah, you go ahead and point it out, because I'm looking.
Let's see. It's with the hail and such, and I'm going to read from verse 22 here, which
All right.
roughly should be. I'm trying to make sure that I'm being more consistent with keeping the right verses on screen here. The Lord said to Moses, "Stretch out your hand towards heaven, so that hail may fall on the whole land of Egypt, on humans and animals, and all the plants of the field in the land of Egypt." And Moses stretched out his hand and staff, and the Lord sent thunder and hail. Fire came down on the earth. The Lord rained hail on the land of Egypt. There was hail with fire flashing continually, yada, yada, yada. Such heavy, it was huge. Huge. The hail struck down everything that was in the open field throughout all the land of Egypt, both human and animal. The hail also struck down all the plants of the field and shattered every tree, except for the land of Goshen. And if we go into the prep work before that, no, that's the boils. Where is it? The prep work.
No, that's the boils. Things you hear in church.
Yeah. Go back to verse 19. Send therefore and have your livestock and everything that you have in the open field brought to a secure place, every human or animal that is in the open field. Have you found the plot hole in this yet?
They didn't do it?
All the livestock died 4 verses ago. Well, more than 4. The boils, and before the boils.
Yeah, wait a minute.
Yeah, the first plague was the death of all the livestock. So we do have ourselves a bit of a canon inconsistency here.
How did I not notice that? I'm mad now.
Sorry.
I am better at catching plot holes than that usually, damn it.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here staring at it I don't know.
Yeah.
That's okay.
And Alter's notes on this are basically just a reminder, look, this isn't meant to be a literal historical accounting for the love of actual God. This is meant to be a hyperbolic example of the destruction that was visited upon Pharaoh as a plague from God.
This is essentially a story about, God will get his.
Yeah.
God will make sure these fuckers get theirs eventually.
Yeah. Step 1 is, how about I melt your cows? Step 2 is, you ever try boils on your ass? And step 3 is, have you ever wondered what happened when a 50-pound ice rock hits a cow in the open field? It ain't pretty. I
feel bad for how hard I'm laughing at that visual. It would be horrifying in reality, but in CGI, freaking hilarious.
Look, every millennial has seen Twister. Another cow. That's the same cow. Yeah, we get it. We get that cows can be funny, and that's actually part of this, the inclusion of livestock.
Seriously?
Hyperbolic. It's meant to Michael Bay this bitch up a bit. That's kind of what that's for, because
I can't accept that. I'm having difficulties. This is too weird.
It is really worth remembering that, particularly the oral histories before they were even written down, but even after they were written down, we're not in a period of history in which fiction as we know it really exists yet. So
you got to make it interesting. You just make the stories interesting to keep people interested, right?
Right. This is a technique used for the holiest of holies that has been adopted by the evangelicals for other purposes. Spice it up, make it fun, make it sexy. Get people interested. You got to keep those butts in the seats, which
butts in seats.
It's part of what they were doing. They couldn't exactly pop down and catch the latest disaster movie down at the Megaplex or what have you. It was the oral histories, or going back to your tent.
Your thumb up your ass, yeah. Well, back to the field.
I'm just imagining the ancient Israelite equivalent of "I'll be in my bunk." Like, what would Jane Cobb be in ancient Israel? Anyway,
Always had one pastime right in the palm of our hands.
Oh, you got it. What? Well done.
I'm not sorry. You brought me for the snark.
I did. In fact, I did. But yes, so that's like a lot of this is hyperbolic for the sake of kind of keeping people interested in this. Now, I'm not saying it didn't happen. Obviously, historical records from kind of pre-pyramid Egypt aren't really a thing.
I did think of one thing. Can I interrupt, please? I'm sorry.
That's what you do. Go ahead. That's what you're here for.
Okay, but shit. Now I forgot. Look at the passage. It'll come to me. Sorry, keep going. I'll interrupt again when I remember it.
Yeah, I am also ADHD ridden, and you knocked me off course. So we both knocked each other off course. Nobody knows where we're going. Who's driving this thing?
Oh, no, Bear is driving. How can this? That doesn't work because you're Kuma.
Yep, sorry.
Bear is driving. Who can this be? Credit to anyone who understands the Bear is driving. How can this be reference?
Oh,
extremely obscure. Credit to anyone who knows what that's from. Extra credit.
I feel like it's an old episode of The Simpsons. Am I wrong?
You're on the right track. It is adult animation.
Okay, so it's not going to be Simpsons. Probably not Family Guy. It doesn't seem right for Family Guy.
No.
It's not Futurama, is it?
No.
All right, you're gonna have to tell me.
Oh, Clerks the cartoon.
Oh, I don't know that one. I've not seen that. So
I told you it was obscure.
Yeah.
Okay, this is driving me crazy that I can't freaking find. And if you could remember what you were talking about, this is the ADHD leading the ADHD, as it were.
Yeah, pretty much.
Something.
So.
And I know as soon as you start talking, it's going to occur to me too. So just go ahead.
Let's see. So, I mean, the thing is, a lot of this chapter, other than these kind of little bits and pieces, is pretty straightforward.
Found it.
There we go.
Found it.
See,
Found
the second I start talking.
So, it goes to a great length a couple of times. It said, in the entire time that Egypt has been a nation, there's never been hail like this. It just a nice reminder of how mind-bogglingly old Egypt is. We're going off oral histories, and they're like, in the great history of this nation, there've never.
Mm-hmm. Yes, one of my favorite bits of chronological fuck you to the way we tend to think is the realization that Cleopatra lives closer in time to us than to the building of the pyramids.
Yep. Yeah. No, it's really, really insane how long Egypt has been civilization.
Yeah,
it's so wild.
And we talked about this.
I had to kind of grin as I was reading that because I'm like, in the whole history of this nation, meanwhile, this is an oral history that's been eventually written down.
Yeah,
that this is
this is the oldest nation in the region by a wide margin. The existence of Egypt predates the existence of the written word. Like, let's be clear about that. There's a reason. The reason why Egyptian writing,
Egypt having like a stratified society with cities and commerce and stuff predated the written word. That's what blows me away.
Yeah, and I mean that's not to say there weren't other cities and economic powers back in the early days of Egypt. We know Akkad was a thing, and a few others.
Cairo is still a city.
Yeah,
Egypt is still a thing. It's even still called Egypt.
Yeah. Like, to their credit, they've been around for a minute. But
it just blows me away.
Yeah, and it's like some of our earliest known writing is like pre-hieroglyphic Egyptian cuneiform and stuff like that. The stuff that they used to carve into rocks on monuments and stuff. Which
cuneiform, yeah.
leads us to the big existential question of the history of the written word. Is the written word something that came along only X number of years ago, or is that only because any farther back anything that was written on doesn't exist anymore?
You know, that's a very interesting thought.
Yeah, because at that point, even like,
I think, what is it?
we don't really have anything past like 5.5 to 6,000 years ago recovered in written form. Actually, you know what? I'm going to straight up Google this on camera because I want to be sure about my dating on here.
Fun stuff. See, we've really
Yeah,
got it
we're
together
about-
here, folks. Like, we're both multitasking on multiple screens as we attempt to do Bible study.
Yeah, Sumerian cuneiform looks like the, and I'm trusting Wikipedia on this. So if somebody's been fucking with the Wikipedia article
They
on
basically
recorded
used
history.
like a cube. Didn't they basically make a cube-shaped piece of something and press it into different angles to get the?
Yeah, pretty much. At least that's the assumption here. Now, Sumerian cuneiform and things like that are some of the oldest written records. Paleo-Hebrew is also right up there. Which,
Paleo-Hebrew. Holy beans.
which I gotta look it up. It's been a while since I've done it, but knowing how to write the tetragrammaton in Paleo-Hebrew, which is probably the only way it was ever written down, is kind of a fun little side effect of pastoral ministry.
Yeah, it's a weird flex, but a cool one.
Yeah, I can write the name of God. Can you?
Yeah, in the original writing, mind
Yes, I
you.
can write it
Once
as it
you got
originally
right to the
appeared.
writing.
I just need to figure out the vowels. Shouldn't be too. I just gotta figure out the vowels. I've been working on that for thousands of. Anyway, but like these are the oldest known forms of writing, but even they are semi-coherent systems from what we can tell. But they're worn down, like to the point where they're barely legible. And this is stuff that was carved in stone.
Even if you could read them, sheer time. I mean, like, hell, try and read like something in Old English. Good lord, and I'm talking actual Old English, significantly older than Shakespeare. Like, what these are words, I would assume, but this is like Rohirric.
Yeah,
And again, credit to anyone who knows that. Yes, it's exactly like Rohirric.
But I mean, even beyond that, just like look what happens when we try to take something from just older dialects of modern English and try to base our entire religious systems of belief on it. Yes, I'm looking at you, KJV originalists. You done fucked up. It leads to bad shit because we don't know what we're talking about. That's still within our modern language group. But anyway, the understanding and interpretation notwithstanding, the physical records themselves degrade after a time. So we don't actually like know that this is when writing was invented. We just simply have writing dating back to this period of time and not before.
Yeah.
For all we know, humans before that time were using solid state memory to record everything, because we all know what happens when you build your history on solid state memory. It all fucking disappears after a couple hundred years. Which is actually our biggest problem. Most historians think we're living in kind of a dead age for record keeping in overall history because of the way we're keeping stuff on stuff that degrades so quickly. But anyway, we've gone wildly off topic, which is always fun to do.
We're talking about solid state memory and a Bible study on Exodus. Everybody, come on, strap in.
I'm not saying that that Pharaoh definitely had a Nintendo Switch. I'm just not saying he had a Switch.
I have modifications now that I need to make to my Animal Crossing island. If you'll excuse me.
Just imagine, by the way, when the plague of hail and thunder lets up. Just imagine Pharaoh is just kicking back in his chair, just pulling up Animal Crossing and going, "Yeah, just let him keep power in the thing."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we want to take a since I'm, just completely derailing the entire Bible study anyway, do we want to talk about the, like, random Thor lightning and flame and stuff within the massive hailstorm?
I gotta give a lot of credit here.
Also, I want to know how heavy the hailstones would have to be for this, like, how big the hailstones would have to be for this to work. So, somebody who does science, please do that.
Yeah, somebody science that up for me. I don't
Somebody else
know.
will love it. Yeah.
But I've watched enough Mythbusters to generally assume that in order to shatter every tree in Egypt, we'd be talking about, at the very least, 1.5 to 2 times the size of the average cannonball. Like, I can't imagine anything smaller to basically level the entire area. Which, of course, this is going to have to be a very narrow window here, because if they were safe inside,
Right.
it'd have to be enough to destroy the trees, but not the buildings.
Tear the buildings down.
Yeah.
Well, and here's a thought too, a sad thought. They didn't have to one hit kill everything. Just beat it to death with bowling balls. That's gonna work for most things.
Well, that's the thing. It might have just been golf ball sized hail, but at a speed and frequency that effectively sandblasted the region.
Now I'm just picturing like one of those golf ball like gathering cart things just opening, but that everywhere. Yeah, that'd kill a lot of things.
Now,
even if they were as light as golf balls.
My brain went a totally different direction, and I just had this image of like a preteen Jesus with headphones on and a power washer. That's where my brain went.
Why is it preteen Jesus? Is that like the state that you think the Savior was in until such time as...
No. Like if we're actually going to be literal about it, Jesus is ha logos, the functional subset of the Trinity that we often call the Son, coexisting with the Creator from the beginning of history to the end. Like there wouldn't be a preteen state. That was literally just my kind of comic book representation of it for comedy's sake.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah, because we're in ancient Egypt. Little Jesus. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funnier to think of it that way. It's not necessarily... It's not accurate.
It is funny. Honestly, I called it out more just so that we wouldn't get, pedants in the comments. Well, actually, Jesus would have been part of the Holy Trinity at this point and not incarnated, and thus would not have a physical age. Thank you very much.
I gotta admit, I am not heavily worried about the comment section, because ever since we had that one dude like a year and a half ago who wanted to rant about whatever the hell he was ranting, I don't even remember.
He was weirdly upset about the idea of us working on the Sabbath of all things.
Oh yeah, that was the thing. Yeah, but since that guy, not even our own community really interacts in the comments yet. Stare directly at the camera.
Do it.
So I'm not worried about the pedants, but if the pedants want to come out and engage in good faith, please do that. It's wildly fun when you do.
Yeah. We don't hate on pedantry. We actually embrace it. Don is too excited to have somebody to yak at.
And I'm actually going to go one step farther and point this out, because I don't point this out enough. Despite being a very functionally progressive community, we are open to people with backgrounds that have led them to other places, such as bigotry or hatred or not knowing or understanding all these other different things. We're open to their presence. They just got to be willing to listen and learn and grow.
And follow the rules, because you cannot just wave around your bigotry and no, I will personally kick you off the server.
Mm-hmm.
We don't do that here.
If you're here to just ask a question because you want to piss people off, you can fuck all the way off. But if you're here to just ask a question because you generally don't understand and or I've been taught this and you're saying this is something totally different, please elaborate. All good. That's
fine. No, that's exactly what we hope to see is, people who are looking to look at their faith in a vastly different way than how they've looked at it before. By all means, please.
But
if you're coming around,
growing is kind of the thing.
I will wreck your whole shit before I let you come for our our trans siblings. No, we're not doing that here.
Just talking about that with our new awesome intern of awesomeness about how many trans folk we have in our server and how we guard them fiercely.
Very much so. Yeah. No, you don't fight me.
No,
take it on Don's suggestion. You don't want to fight me.
Yeah. And the fact is, to get to the point where you're fighting...
You really don't want to fight Aki, though.
Oh, God, no. Pastor Akiko is not someone you want to get in a fight with. Trust me, I know. I've been married to her for 16 years. But
that's a foible that's exclusively your right.
Yes. My point, though, being, one, if you want to get to either of them, you first got to go through me, and that's not going to go well for you. And two, I'll admit I do get annoyed when your armchair theologians try to get up here and get in an argument with me. I try to seem accessible and whatnot, but I'm very well lettered in this. This is not something I just am doing for fun. I am a professional.
It's one of the things that got me on board. I was like, oh, you're going to go for the doctorate and the whole 9 yards, are you?
Yeah, I'm 2/3 of the way through my doctorate.
All right, I'll listen to what you got to say.
Yeah, I am not someone who doesn't know what he's on about. Is my point. And I don't mean to be arrogant in that. It's just in the same way, I wouldn't walk up to the hospital and start arguing with a doctor who said what medicine I need to take. I would generally hope that people don't come into a biblical or spiritual argument with me and try to tell me they know better when they've literally only ever read 6 passages out of the KJV. Like, I get having a strong sense of spiritually what you think is right and wrong, but also like, recognize, man, like, know where you are, know what you have to learn, and know who you're asking. Like, I don't think that's unfair.
No, I don't think that's unfair either.
Yeah. So anyway, to get out of my bragging for a minute, we're back into the Bible here. We've got all of this shit happening, and we can kind of see
happening.
Yeah, we can kind of see too here a little bit that God is kind of somewhat losing the divine patience a little bit, for lack of a better term. We roll ourselves down to the bottom, and where is it?
One of the very last verses.
Actually, I'm trying. See, I thought I had it, and turns out I did not. Also, the title of my book as a pastor. Pretty much the whole Thunder and Hail plague, really.
Yeah.
Where God's just like, the first two, this is gonna happen. It's gonna hurt. This last one, God is like, I'm gonna fuck you up. Like, I'm fixing to slap a bitch.
You've got. He basically, or God basically says, you've gotten off easy this far. No more.
Yeah, the kid gloves are coming off. Which, side note for those of you who don't know or have terrible thoughts about what that means, kid glove refers to the type of leather with which it is made, and not the use to which it is put. It's made from the skins of smaller goats, also known as kids. It is not a glove for hitting children, which surprised me how many people think it is. Anyway, the kid gloves come off.
What?
Yeah.
I was like, why is he clarifying this so thoroughly? This is some pretty specific stuff.
Like in
wow.
Some right-wing communities, I've heard people talk about how like the kid gloves are
it's
so
kid
named.
leather, and kid leather is really soft,
right?
And like supple, and so taking off the kid gloves basically means let's get rough.
Yeah, I heard people talking
really
about how that's the
funny.
gloves you use for disciplining your kids because you don't hit them full force the way you hit an adult. And I just basically
Jesus,
that entire 30 Rock meme of what the fuck is pretty much where my brain was at for all that. But like, no,
There's
I should throw that caveat out there.
A lot to unpack there, but let's just throw out the whole suitcase.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's
so. Like, but this is the point at which God is basically saying, all right, so he didn't get it. All right, let's do everything we can to protect those who are willing to listen. But
and now I'm gonna fuck some shit up for real.
Yeah, then we're gonna put all of his livestock and most of his people through a hydraulic press. We're gonna make goo of the whole land. Which,
God, yeah, this is another one where it must have been absolutely horrifying to walk outside after this.
Yeah, and this is
this
is a point that our Sunday school classes, probably for good reason, don't touch on very much, which is the absolute Lovecraftian horror of this literal apocalyptic scenario. Like, there is something really, really interesting and engaging in reading about how people react to apocalyptic scenarios. I'll be honest and geeky at the same time. Right now, I'm reading through this fan-made oral history of the Battle of Wolf 359 from Star Trek, which is absolutely...
Jesus Christ, Don.
Honestly,
don't admit that to camera.
No, I absolutely will admit that to camera, because the people who put this sucker together are fantastic, and it is extremely well written. Absolutely just spot-on writing. But it explores something that I've looked at in a lot of different types of writing. I was talking with someone this morning about the overall plot line of the game Horizon Zero Dawn, which kind of touches on a lot of the same things. How we behave in light of apocalypse. When you are facing the unfaceable. The no-win scenario, to bring the Star Trek reference back again. But how we are in the face of what we cannot handle is a fundamental measure of, for lack of a better term, good or bad. It's a fundamental measure of who we are.
You make me feel pretty good about how the last 6 months of my life have gone, dude. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I
how we deal with upsetting, like a never-ending parade of upsetting shit happening.
Yeah, I mentioned this in the live stream we did the other day. So if you haven't seen that, I recommend going back and seeing it. Even if you skip the worship, which Pastor Akiko's sermon was freaking fire, I suggest you don't. But even if you get to the panel discussion after, I talked about this piece that comes from the Orthodox Church liturgy that I use a lot, actually, in kind of my discussion about how we are as Christians. It all comes from our shared experience Christian-wise anyway, but the Orthodox were very good about putting it together liturgically, and you see this in their funeral rites all the time, the phrase, even at the grave we make our song. And that is, to me, the fundamental measure of what it means to be a follower of God. In those last moments, in those terrifying, unwinnable scenarios, are we the ones who are panicking, shitting our pants, and diving off the nearest bridge? Or are we
the guys getting out their violins and playing Nearer My God to Thee as the Titanic sinks?
Or throwing on a hymn and bandaging wounds. My first ever sermon I delivered in capacity as a member of the classes that I'm currently a member of. The first sermon I ever delivered in my pastoral ordination process, I delivered to the Reverend Classes of New Brunswick, New Jersey. Actually, I believe I was delivering it in the city of Brielle in New Jersey, at a church where I was working as a youth pastor at the time. And basically, I started out by explaining the ethos, for those of you who follow the old video game Xenogears, and those followers of this religion that quickly discovered that the god they were worshiping was actually just some like space super weapon and wasn't actually a deity, and was actually now proceeding to melt everyone on the planet. Of course, everybody gives up their faith, but then at the very end, you find this small group of people who are just still bandaging wounds and caring for the sick. And they're just like, yeah, no matter what else happens, even at the end of time itself, our path is still the same. We're still going to do the same thing. That's just who we are. And my sermon went on. Shit. Yeah. Which, by the way, that's who I am homiletically in terms of sermon writing, in case anyone knows. Start with Xenogears, end with Lazarus. The point of the whole sermon, by the way, was the church is dying and we should let it die. And I still managed to pull it all together. Gonna brag on that one.
Is that the one that got you let go?
No, that's the one that got me a hug from the president of classes, who then got up to deliver his basically his state of the classes address, and just said, I had a whole speech prepared, but I'm not going to do it. What he said, and then sat down.
Holy shit!
I'm
way to go,
so
dude.
proud of that sermon to date.
You still got kicked out of that. You still got kicked out of that division, didn't you?
No. This was with the one I'm still in.
Oh no, that's this current. Okay, yeah. That's freaking awesome.
That's actually how I knew that this was the right place for me to get ordained in. But I digress.
Our dear outspoken Pastor Kuma here has. It may shock literally nobody to know.
I've been
had trouble finding churches sometimes that were okay with what he had to say, despite it all being like biblically based, which you may notice.
I have been kicked out of more churches than some people have been members of. You know, it happens.
Yep.
But anyway, like my point to bring it all back is where we are when death is inevitable is the measure of who we are as faithful people, because we believe in a God that is beyond this. The God, like we, in Christian terms, we're a resurrection people. But we also recognize, because this is Holy Week, I'm going to have to give this sermon anyway.
You're going to have to say what a resurrection people is, because that's vague even for me.
Literally what I'm doing right now.
Okay, cool, good.
I'm giving the sermon because it's Holy Week and it's got to be give anyway. But when I say we're a resurrection people, what that means is we don't shy away from the death. We don't shy away from the suffering and the hurt, because we know that's not the end of it. The story doesn't end at the darkest part. There's more after that. No matter how dark it gets, there's something beyond it for which we are striving. And that's what it means to be a resurrection people. Now, I'll grant a lot of evangelicals like to take that phrase, we're a resurrection people, and mean that we have to ignore all the dark. We skip. How many fucking contemporary services don't bother with Maundy Thursday or Good Friday and just skip right ahead to Easter? No, those things are
that's horrifying. I will say that I've never been to a church that didn't have a freaking a Good Friday service. Maybe not Maundy Thursday, but holy shit. How do you not have a Good Friday service? It's literally one of the most important days on the Christian calendar.
Yeah, the last church
Like,
that kicked me out didn't want to have Maundy, Thursday, or Good Friday. They wanted to be none of that because they didn't want any of that depressing shit all up in their junk. For reference to my opinion vis-a-vis that church, please see my previous sermon from the beginning of this month. I talked about that at greater length. I actually did give them a unnamed shout out. But I digress yet again. Being a resurrection, it is. Being a resurrection people means that we look at the death. We go through the death and we come out the other side. And this story that we're dealing with in Exodus here is the prototype for that. Because remember, like, we're watching the interaction between Pharaoh and God. But the story actually isn't about that interaction. That's the framework for the
it's about what God's doing for God's people.
Right. The cowering slaves are the star of the story, even though we're not even talking about them right now. Like, what we're reading here is the framework of someone else's story, and that someone else is us, the people who are hiding in the fields. And yes, even the slaves who were ordered out into the fields by masters who didn't give a shit and done got crushed by their own God. Like, the suffering comes from the people who don't listen to God. Some of us are going to have to bear it. But on the other side of that is a path through the ocean and milk and honey. Like, that's where it begins. This is the first real tale of that. No matter how dark it gets, we're going somewhere. We don't stay.
We don't really know where, but we're going somewhere.
Look, if I know a guy. That's as far as I can tell you. We're going somewhere.
Yeah. Well, and I have honestly something that has really rejuvenated my religion has been embracing the idea that the kingdom of heaven isn't about heaven. The kingdom of heaven is about how we treat each other here. We're supposed to make where we are the kingdom of heaven with our actions and our hearts and our love and our service. And it's actually kind of strange as, a Christian, again, a religion that believes in an afterlife, getting to a point where that's really not like the important part to me.
I'll say
I just want to do good things for people.
There's a reason why the prayer doesn't say, thy kingdom come, thy will be done, up in heaven and get me there as quickly as you fucking can. Like, it says on earth as it is in heaven, because that's where the focus is meant to be. People ask me fairly often, as you can imagine.
Sometimes it's easy to say, thy kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven. And it sounds like, please. I always got the impression that it was like, please, Lord, we wait for the day when you come again. And
not entirely.
I feel like it's misguided.
Yeah. And like, as I often tell people, because as you can imagine, I get asked this often enough, basically, what is Christian eschatology? What is our belief in the end of the world? What is our belief in the afterlife? What is our belief in what comes next? And as
we know a guy.
Yeah, we know a guy. Yeah, I got a guy for that. I got a towel guy, I got a plumbing guy, I got a life after death guy, all good. That's pretty much it. Like, I don't know.
Did you say a towel guy?
I don't know. I was naming random things. All right, trying to make the joke.
You need some rest, my dude.
When don't I? My point though is, like, in the end, it's up to us. Now, and to ask the question that popped up in the chat, is this similar to as above, so below? I that's more of a Catholic phrase as far as I recall it, but it harkens to the same thing.
It's more witchcraft than anything. As above, so below.
Yeah, I've heard it in religious circles on the Christian side of things.
It's generally intended in a pretty positive way, though, and the idea being that, like, what is worked in one area will be worked in others.
Yeah. So.
And I like the way that ties into the ideas, like, if you're doing good in the world, you're doing it for the glory of God, whether you mean to or not.
Mm-hmm.
Things like that I'm like, yeah, you know what? This is starting to resemble a world I can recognize.
Yeah.
Because when you're fed these weird stories about what everything that you're praying and reading is supposed to mean, that seem like they fit what you're reading.
Right.
But the older you get and the more you think, the less they seem right.
Yeah. It is possible to overthink things.
Yeah. Yes. And I overthink things plenty, and I think we're probably running clean at a time here too. So.
Yeah. Well, we went a little long here, but we found some things that we need to talk about, and the scripture was a bit light today. It's not hard
for us to do that.
Yeah.
Find things we talk about.
So next Exodus episode, we're going to be getting into the 10th chapter, in which we are going to be doing a lot of crazy stuff. We get the locusts tomorrow. We get the locusts. That's going to be fun next time.
Now presenting the locusts! Yeah! Cool.
Yeah, okay. Oh, and then we get darkness.
At least they're getting something they can eat.
Yeah. Locusts and darkness is our next chapter. So, nighttime bugs. Woo.
So it's topical?
Yeah, pretty much. So that's going to be next time. However, our next live stream is going to be as we get... we've missed a couple because of scheduling conceits, but our next one we're going to be getting back into the gospel. Although, it's, as I intimated earlier, if I can get certain individuals on board for it, a Good Friday kind of back-to-basics special episodes is not out of the question.
Indeed.
Yeah, so we will be looking into that as well. In the meantime, y'all, I'm going to toss this out there and say come join the church Discord server. If you're catching this shit online, please come into our community. Things have been a little bit quiet there lately because I've been kind of behind the 8 ball for a lot of other reasons. But, yeah.
Meanwhile, I'm just terrible at keeping up on responsibilities.
Yeah, but we are still here. We're still ticking along. We're still putting stuff out there. It's Holy Week, so there's a lot going on both physically and in the digital realm. There is a Good Friday thing on the books that has yet to be scheduled, but God willing will be done soon. There is Easter, which is going to be happening at our usual time. If you're local to us, there is ostensibly going to be an Easter egg hunt, although God help me, I'm still trying to figure out where the Easter eggs wound up. I may have to order some on a quick turnaround if I'm very unlucky.
Oh dear.
Like life being what it is. So all of that is a thing. Our community is everywhere. We are inevitable. We can't be escaped. We cannot be avoided. We are the omnipresent church. What I mean to say is that we're a digital community around the world. So it doesn't matter where you are, who you are, what you're doing. You wanna join up with us. Great. If you are,
we are inevitable.
Yeah. If you are a member of our community and are interested in becoming a member, shoot me a line. We're working up our Christianity 101 / new member class. We're trying to make these things happen. We also are trying to do a lot of more community work physically in our physical space as well, including support for victims of certain things. We're also looking at ways to try and help people living under certain oppressive regimes in this world find their way to
the sort of places that are earning new travel warnings, not to be specific.
Yeah, so if you're living in a place where other countries are issuing travel warnings about your country, and you are one of the reasons that it is one of the types of groups for which it is not safe to exist in that country, let us know. We're working on some stuff. But in the meantime, if you
It is safe to exist with us.
Yes, it is always safe to exist with us. And if you want to in any way support our community or the work we're doing, there's a couple of ways you can do that. We have donation links down in the description, of course, and we are always and eternally thankful for any donations you can give our way. It basically
thank you. All donations for our church is voluntary. We will not press you about it. No. Unless you've got like $1 million, then please, for the love of God, fucking help.
Yeah, if you're part of our church community and you are just swimming in it, you might be getting a call from me saying, "Dude, the fuck, come on, pony up, like, make what to do." No, but really, if you have the means, great. If you don't, it's not a pressure environment. Church is a free thing, but pastors also do have to pay their bills, so a little help is always appreciated. The other thing you can do, if that's not your thing from a digital space, that you can do that will really just make our day is to, in all things and in all ways, do what Courtney tells you to do.
Like, share, and subscribe, pretty please. Yes. Leave a comment below. Tell a friend in Meet Space, hey, there's these two weirdos online and they talk about the Bible like you're not supposed to talk about the Bible.
Yeah.
Like in ways that you don't talk about the Bible. Like they're talking about it in those ways.
Yeah.
Ooh, let me see. Yeah, well, let's grab some beers and a pre-roll and let's watch this shit.
Yeah, post this shit on
Make it a
message
drinking
boards.
game. Tell us the rules.
Throw it into the Reddit
Seriously.
machine, whatever. You know, do what you got to get the word out, because believe it or not, that really does help. The more eyes on the better. Really is kind of the thing about it. You know, so that is helpful. Also, you know, I did say do anything Courtney says. So if she calls you up in the middle of the night telling you that you need to give her money, then I guess you just have to do that. I'm kidding. That is a joke.
I am so tempted to just like say my my Venmo and be like, you know, if you want to support you know, local artists snarking on their pastors for not pay, please feel free.
And you know, part of our longer goals too is to figure out ways that we can be as a community to support each other. So, like, part of what we do is we try to get Courtney's art out there, and we try to get members of the community who are doing art and other stuff out there. Like, there's more to it than just that. There is a merch store that we have under construction right now, which will provide you opportunities to get fancy, cool stuff and also support.
We can support one another in ways that aren't just saying give the church your money and the church will decide what to do with it. Like, there's lots of ways that we can support one another.
Yeah.
It's just, it still feels gross because it's all very capitalism.
Yeah.
And that has very much become the worship of something, not God.
Yeah. I hate having to exist under a capitalism. I hearken back to the days when church was a communism and everybody just gave the pastor their money and it was all just redistributed according to need. It was so much easier back then. But since I don't live as a Greek Christian under the oppression of the Roman Empire, I guess I'm going to have to deal.
Yeah, you got to take the wins and losses where you get them, man.
Yeah, I get to fist fight a different empire. All right. So, yeah, pretty much. So now that we're in our Star Wars mindset, I'm going to wish you all a wonderful week. Take care. If you need anything, be in touch. I hope we'll see you online. And take care of yourselves. Bye.
Bye, y'all.